amaphoyisa uma ke bezothatha itatimende kanye futhi ke nabehluleli.
It is further correct that you were approached on the 24th of June 2020 to take a confession from accused number 2. Is that correct?
Ek is genader om 'n bekentenis te vat. Ek was nie bewus van wie dit gevat sou gewees het nie.
I was approached to take a confession. I wasn't aware as to from whom was the confession going to be taken. Mina kwenziwa ukuthi nje ngacelwa ukuthi ke angithathe ke confession ukuthi yayizokwenziwa kwakuubani lo uzokhuluma angikwazi ngamafutha.
Dit het eers later my bekend geword dat die persoon wat die bekentenis wou aflê, meneer Bongani Sandisu Ntanzi is.
It only became later, it became known to me later stage that the person or the deponent was Bongani Sandisu Ntanzi. Into engazoyazi kamuva ke ukuthi umuntu ke ozoyenza ke le confession kwakuubongani Sandisu Ntanzi.
So, for the benefit of the public, it is correct so that the said confession was taken in terms of section 21A, in terms of section 217, 1B, Roman figure 2.
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Kuyiqiniso ke ukuthi ke i-confession lena yathathwa ke phansi ke wawo ke lo mthetho lewo usection 217.
Ma'am, it is correct that you took the said provision. It talks about the accused. Is that correct?
Nee, kan nie saamstem nie. Ek het die bepaal, is dit nou nommer 2?
I cannot agree with you there.
Dit verwys na die woord person, nie accused nie. As jy maar net kan verwys na die deel waarna u verwys.
If you were just to refer me to the portion that you are, because here it refers to a person, not an accused. If you can direct me to where to which point you exactly mean.
May I consult, my lord?
You are reading the section.
Yes, sir, the
217
217, my lord.
sub 1
B.
B.
Sub
Dis korrek.
Sub 1B,
As jy
that's
maar net
correct.
daarna kan verwys, want ek kan nie die woord accused daarin opspoor nie.
Because if you can just point out, because I cannot see or trace the word accused in here.
It reads of such person against such person.
Such person, yeah.
So ek sien nie die woord spesifiek daai.
Thank you.
I don't see that specific word. Angiliboni ke legama okhuluma ngalo ke lana ikhuluma ngomuntu ayikhulumi ngomsola noma ummangalelo.
Thank you for the correction. I would like to retract that question. Let me withdraw it. Let's proceed. May I consult, ma'am? No, I'll go through that. No, it's fine. Thanks. Thank you. In relation to the provision that we were dealing with, Section 217, it is indeed so that after taking a confession, it must be reduced into writing. Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Kuyiqiniso ke ukuthi emuva kokuthi ke ngithathile ke noma la umuntu avuma khona ke lokho akushoyo ngikubhale phansi.
The prerequisites of that provision is that the person who is from whom you are taking a confession must make such a confession freely and voluntarily in his sound and sober senses. Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Kuyiqiniso ke ukuthi umuntu uma ke ezokwenza confession fanele akwenze lokho kuphuma kuyena ke futhi esempondweni ke ngokuphelele.
And it further states that it must be made without being induced or coerced or made under threat. Is that correct?
Ja, dit lees without having unduly influenced.
That is how it reads, yes. Ifundeka ngaleyo ndlela ke ukuthi angaphoqwa ke umuntu noma kube ukuthi akaphoqiwe ukuthi akwenze noma ke akhulume lokazokhuluma.
For the benefit of the public, the same provision under section 2171A provides similar prerequisites. Is that correct?
Ek kan so sê ja.
You can say so, yes. Ungasho ke nokuthi u217 leyo ke 1A nayo ke usho kanjalo.
But the only distinction is that the provisions in terms of section 2171A, it is made by a non-judicial officer. Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Uyiqiniswa ukuthi yena ke u2171A wenziwa ke umuntu ongasiyena ke umantshi noma ke umehluleli.
In the same provision of section 2171A, it also requires the confession to be made in writing. Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Kwa futhi ke loyo 2171A ke uyasho ke ukuthi confession leyo kumele fanele ukuthi ibhalwe phansi.
It further makes a provision that that particular confession shall only be admissible unless it is reduced into writing in the presence of a magistrate or justice.
Dis
Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
Nokuthi ke that is correct, yes. Nokuthi ke futhi lokho kuzokwenzeka ukuthi yamukeleke ukuthi uma yenziwa ngaphambi kwakhe ke umuntu oyimantshi.
If that as a magistrate, if that confession in terms of section 2171A is made by an officer but not in the presence of a magistrate, do you regard that as a properly taken confession?
Maar sover ek verstaan, as daar enige bekentenis gemaak word aan byvoorbeeld 'n polisie
Ngokwami ke ukwazi uma ngaba ke i-confession leyo yenziwa ke futhi yenziwa kumuntu ke ongasiyona ke i-officer noma ke ngesikhundla ke unesikhundla esiphansi noma esisenzansi, yeah.
dan moet daardie bekentenis voor 'n landdros bevestig word.
And then that confession needs to be confirmed in front of a magistrate or before a magistrate. Okusho ukuthi ke leyo confession leyo kuzofanele ke ukuthi ke unikezwe isiqinisekiso ke ngaphambi kwayo imantshi.
Dit is nie myns insiens nodig dat 'n landdros fisies teenwoordig hoef te wees op die stadium as daai bekentenis geneem word. Maar dit moet nog steeds in skriftelik geneem word en dan bevestig word weer voor 'n landdros.
It is not necessary for it that a magistrate should be present when it is made or when it is taken down, but it needs to be confirmed, or the confirmation part needs to be confirmed in front or before a magistrate. Akusi ukuthi ke uma yenziwa ke kufanele imantshi ibe khona noma magistrate abe khona, kodwa uma isiyoqinisekiswa ke lokho kwenziwe phambi kwakhe umantshi.
En hierdie in hierdie spesifieke geval was dit nie 'n konfessie of 'n bekentenis in terme van artikel 1 sub A nie, aangesien die persoon wat die konfessie afgelê het aan my aangedui het dat hy geen ander soortgelyke verklaringe gemaak het nie.
But with regards to this particular one, it is not a confession that was made under section or section 1 sub A, seeing that the person or the deponent of the confession informed me or indicated to me that he had made no other confession or confession which is similar to this. Lapha ke phansi kwakhe ke usection 1 lona ke usub A bese ingekho ke isidingo saloko ngoba ke lo muntu ebenza ke le noma besenza le statement ephambi kwami ushilo ukuthi ayikho enye ayenzile enjengalena.
That's correct. The thing is, your evidence is that this is how you understood section 2171A.
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Ngishilo ukuthi indlela ke leyo engimuzwa ngayo noma engim-understanda ngayo ke usection 2171A.
But my question did not relate to how do you understand section 2171A. My question related to what is prescribed by the Act of Parliament. Unless you want us to read the whole section.
U kan dit
For you
lees.
to understand,
You
to
can
give
read it.
You can
You can read
lees.
it.
as a belief.
He says you can read it.
Sorry?
He says you can read it.
My Lord, may I read it with the assistance of my attorney? Yes, Mr. Where's Mr. Can you read it for me? Section 218, this. 218. 217. 1A. Yes.
As the court pleases, my lord, section 2171A, the section 217 says admissibility of confession by accused, and 1A says, and I quote, that a confession made to a peace officer other than a magistrate or a justice, or in case of a peace officer referred to in section 334, a confession made to such a person, such a peace officer, which relates to an offense with reference to which such a peace officer is authorized in exercise any power conferred upon him under that section shall not be admissible in evidence unless confirmed and reduced to in writing in the presence of a magistrate or justice. Is the court pleases?
Thank you, my Lord. Did you understand that?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Ngiyakuzwa ke lokho kufundiwe.
It does not relate to any rank of the peace officers. Do you
Dis
agree?
korrek.
That is correct. Kusho akukhulumi ke ngamarenki ke ama peace officer.
So it differs with the way you understood it. Do you agree now?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Yebo ke nokuthi ke iyehlukana ngendlela ke mina engizwe ngayo.
Let's get into the date in which you said you were informed by Mrs. Du Plessis, or you were requested to take a confession. Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
That is correct.
The communication between yourself and Mrs. Du Plessis, was it in writing or verbally?
Telefonies.
Telephonically. Inkulumo phakathi kwami ke no Mrs. Du Plessis okuyena ke wangicela kwakungocingo.
So the details of what you discussed between yourself and Mrs. Du Plessis cannot be confirmed if she is not called to confirm such conversation. Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Yebo ke okwakhulunywa ke phakathi kwami naye angeke kube kuqinisekiswe ke uma engabiziwe.
So that part of evidence can be provisionally accepted unless or until Mrs. Du Plessis is called to testify in order to confirm that conversation. Is that correct?
Die regter het reeds 'n uitspraak daaroor gegee toe ek die getuienis gelewer het.
The judge has already made a ruling with regards to that when I testified
En sover ek kan onthou, was dit aangedui as dat dit geskraap moet word wanneer is hoorsê.
And as far as I can remember, it was indicated that it should not form part of the record because it is hearsay.
Maar
Sorry, okay.
ten opsigte van u vraag, dit bly die keuse van die hof en die staatsadvokaat wat hulle met daai deel wil doen.
But with regards to your question, it remains the choice of the court as well as the state as to what they are going to do as far as that is concerned. Kuyiqiniseke ukuthi impela ke angeke kube nesiqiniseko saloko kwashiwo phakathi kwami nayo uMrs Du Plessis, kodwa ke inkantolo ibisisikhiphileke isinqumo nkathi ninikezela ngobufakazi ukuthi leyo ngxenye yobufakazi ke ukuthi ingamukelwa ke nanjengokuthi yinto ukuthi akekho lo muntu lona engikhuluma ngaye ukuthi kuzokwenziwani ke emuva kwalokho isinqumo senkantolo kanye nayo umshushisi.
When you arrived at Boksburg Court, it was 2:30, subject to correction, but I heard that it was 2:30.
Nee, dit was 2:25 min of meer.
No, it was more or less 2:25. Sikhathi ngafika ngaso eBoksburg ngathi kwaku 2:25.
2:25. And when you entered the court building, or when you entered towards the office that was prepared for you, that is room 2, you saw police officers who were heavily armed. Is that correct?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Kuyiqiniseke ukuthi ngathi mangena lapho ngabonaka amaphoyisa ayehlomile.
Were you not frightened?
Nee.
No, cha ngangasabi.
When you noticed somebody that was handcuffed, that was an assumption that this is the person who's coming to take a confession. Is that so?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Yabo ke uma ngabona ke umuntu ofaka ozankosi la engacabangela khona ukuthi uyena ke lo muntu lona ozokhuluma noma uzokwenza confession.
The person who was wearing the suit, you said, did you manage to know who that person was?
Dis korrek.
That is correct.
What
Yabo
was-
kuyiqiniseke ukuthi ngaye ngamazi ukuthi kwakubani lo owayegqoke isuti.
Who was that person?
Die persoon het homself voorgestel aan my in die kantoor as meneer Dominic Mngomezulu.
The person introduced himself to me in the office as Dominic Mngomezulu. Wayichaza ke lo muntu loyo nanjengo Dominic Mngomezulu.
Sy volle naam en van het ek egter van die dokumentasie gekry wat hy aan my oorhandig het.
But his full details or his full names as well as his surname, I got those from the document that he provided me with. Kodwa ke amagama akhe aphelele ngawathola ke kuloko noma ke document awayenginikeze yona.
Let's just start with Mr. Mngomezulu Dominic. It's your evidence that you satisfied yourself that he was an attorney. Correct?
Ja,
Yes, yebo ngayineza ke ukuthi waye ummeli noma nganyela ke ukuthi ummeli.
But there was a distinctive feature that actually happened, or you treated him differently from other police officers. Let me just put it very straight to say you did not make the copies of the Fidelity Fund certificate and the appointment certificate. Is that correct?
dis korrek.
That is correct. Kuyiqiniseke ke ukuthi ke i-certificate sakhe ke nalesi se-Fidelity Fund angiwenzanga amakhophi alokho.
And you made the copies of the officers, including the officer Mr. Mugano, and you attached them on the pro forma. Is that correct?
Ek het self nie die afskrifte gemaak nie, hulle het die afskrifte gemaak en in die kantoor ingebring net voordat ek begin het met die bekentenis.
I did not personally make the copies. They made the copies and brought those copies to the office just before I started with the confession. Akuyimina ke owawenza ke layo makhophi uma khuluma ke ngomuhane ngibona abahamba bayowenza base bewaletha ke ngaphambilini nje ukuthi ngiqaleke ngenze leyo confession.
But at your request, is that so?
Dit is korrek.
That is correct.
But
Lokho
you-
bakwenza-ke becelwe yimina.
But you never requested the copies of Mr. Mjiako to be the FFC certificate and the appointment certificate. You never requested it to be copies to be made out of them. Is
That's
that correct?
That is correct. Kuqiniswa ukuthi kamjiyako wona-ke amaphepha angizange ngicela ukuthi akwenziwe amakhophi awo.
And Mr. Mjiako, that Dominic Mjiako, unless if he's called to testify, what he told you cannot be accepted in court as hearsay evidence. You agree?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Yebo-ke angitshela kona-ke umjiyako lokho akwazike ukwamukeleka enkantolo nanjengokuthi into engayizwa ngoba ngaphandleni kokuthi abizwe eze yena-ke ezofakazi.
And that failure to prove that evidence cannot be corroborated by the copies that should have been attached in the proforma. Do you agree?
Daar is geen kopieë aangeheg wat die inskrywing op hierdie bekentenis tot daai effek bevestig nie. Dis korrek.
That is correct, yes. There is no copy made with regards to that which is attached to this confession. Kuyiqiniswa ukuthi ngempela akayikho-ke icopy yaloko noma lokho okubhaliwe lapho ekhona noma eyingxenye yale statement lesi.
So this honorable court cannot accept the evidence of a discussion between yourself and Mr. Mjiako. Do you agree?
In terme van wat?
With regards to what?
The conversation between yourself and Mr. Mjiako, who said is the attorney, Dominic Mjiako.
Dit is bevestig deur die persoon wat die bekentenis self gemaak het ook en hy het hierdie man uitgewys ook as sy prokureur.
Dat
En
was-
hierdie man het bevestig dat hy die prokureur is. So ten opsigte van die voorsittende beampte myself moet ek aanvaar as 'n persoon 'n bekentenis kom aflê en hy self wys na hierdie man en sê dit is sy prokureur en hierdie man bevestig dit dat dit wel so is.
This was mentioned or was said by the deponent of the confession, and then the person himself confirmed that indeed he was the lawyer. Now I, as the presiding officer, the person who was now taking down the confession, then has to accept that indeed if the person, the deponent says this is his lawyer and he confirms that it is indeed so. Lokhu-ke kwakhulunywa uyena-ke lona owayezokwenza istatimende ukuthi ummeli wakhe. Naye-ke lo ekuthiwa ummeli naye-ke wase eqinisekisa-ke lokho ukuthi ummeli. Nanjengemantshi-ke mina-ke engizokwenza ukuthi ngamukeleke ukuthi lokhu abangitshela kona ngempela kukanjalo.
Ek het myself vergewis met die dokumentasie wat hy voorgelê het, met dit wat die persoon wat die bekentenis afgelê het aan my meegedeel het, asook hierdie prokureur. Maar u is reg. As die staat, as hy dit in twyfel getrek word dat hierdie persoon sê wie hy is, dat hy nie 'n prokureur is nie, dat hy my as voorsittende beampte mislei het, of dat daar 'n bewering is dat die persoon glad nie eers daar was nie, dan moet die staatsadvokaat toesien dat hierdie persoon geroep word. Wat my betref in daardie omstandighede was ek tevrede dat en oortuig gewees dat hierdie man sê wie hy is en dat die persoon wat die bekentenis aflê wel ook tevrede is met hierdie man wat sê dat dit sy prokureur is en dat dit is die persoon wat hy aangestel het.
This was said to me by the deponent, and then the documentation was then provided or shown to me. I certified myself with that which was said by the deponent, as well as the documentation, that it was indeed the case. If now there is this allegation now from your side that this person was not a lawyer or was not an attorney, or that this person was never there, then indeed, yes, as you say, the state will then, or that this person misled me as the presiding officer, then of course it is incumbent upon the state to then call this person to come before the court.
Thank you. But
Lokho-ke okwashiwo uloyo owayenza istatement kumina. Ngase nginikezwa-ke nephepha-ke noma-ke idocument emchazayo-ke ukuthi ummeli lo muntu. Ngase nginezake ukuthi ngempela lokho kukanjalo. Uma-ke kuwukuthi lokho wena-ke okushoyo ukuthi cha lo muntu wayengekho lapho, wayengasiyena ummeli noma wangikhohlisa-ke mina, uzosho-ke ukuthi kuzofanele ukuthi eze phambi kwale nkantolo azokusho-ke lokho.
Die tolk was natuurlik ook teenwoordig tydens die hele voorval en is ook 'n getuie tot wat plaasgevind het in die kantoor.
The interpreter was also present during the proceedings and is also a witness with regards to what happened in the office.
I've indicated-
Utolika-ke naye-ke wayekhona-ke lapho futhi-ke ufakazi-ke mayelana nalokho okwenzeka ehhovisi.
Ma'am, I said, let us just start with Dominic Nchiako. My question still stands. What you discuss, forget about the deponent. What you discuss between yourself and Dominic cannot be confirmed at this moment. Is that correct?
Ek het die vraag reeds geantwoord, ek staan by.
I have already answered the question. I maintain that which I have already said. Senguphenduleke lo mbuzo njengokubuza ushobo ukuthi okuwakhulunywa yimina-ke noDominic angeke asikho isiqinisekiso sawo. Sengiphenduleke kuloyo mbuzo.
And I'll further.
Sorry, Mr. Mngomezulu. Sorry.
Sorry.
This witness adds a rider that the interpreter was present when this gesprek, when this discussion happened. Are you saying that, ma'am?
Dis korrek.
Yeah, that's the rider she adds.
My Lord, I'll come to the evidence of an interpreter.
No, fine.
The
but I'm just
important-
saying the witness adds a rider. You see the problem here, she's testifying in Afrikaans. And die hof is machtig in Afrikaans. So that rider was not interpreted.
No, I did, my lord.
No, you interpreted it the first time. Are you with me? But when she says end, the talk was daar so.
I
In
did
the
just now, my
okay,
lord.
fine, sorry.
Okay.
No problem.
So, to your knowledge, you are not sure if, okay, let me just put it this way. Let's get into, I'll just sum up my questions in relation to Mr. Nchiako by saying, other than a confirmation by the interpreter, there's nothing that you can confirm that Mr. Nchiako was present on that particular day.
U kliënt kan dit bevestig.
Your client can confirm that. Ngaphandle njengoba uthi-ke ngaphandle kotolika akukho kunye okungaqinisekisaka ukuthi uNjako wayekhona, lona ommeleke angakuqinisekisa.
It's my instruction that he was not represented on that day, and he does not even know Mr. Nchiako. It's my instruction. That's why I'm still insisting on the right to legal representation.
As dit u instruksie is, dan vertel u kliënt nie vir u die waarheid nie.
If that is your instruction, then your client is not telling you the truth. Ukuma kungaba-ke lokho uthi-ke lona ommele ukutshela lokho-ke ukuthi wayengamelwe ngaleliya langa, kusho ukuthi akakutsheli iqiniso.
All right. If that is so, he's not telling me the truth. I just want to establish, because you said you have done not less than 50 confessions in your experience. Do you still confirm that?
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Yebo bengishilo ukuthi engisengiwenzile ama-confessions awekho-ke ngaphansi ko-50.
When you are taking a confession in the presence of a legal practitioner, what is the role of the practitioner? Is it passive or active? The role of the attorney when you are taking a confession. Is it passive or active?
Ten opsigte van 'n konfessie behoort dit nie te wees in 'n mate dat die prokureur vir die beskuldigde vir die deposant voorsê of voorskryf wat hy moet sê nie, maar kan wel adviseer en bystaan.
With regards to a confession, it is not necessary that the lawyer or the attorney would inform the person as to what it is to say, in other words, lead the person into what to say, but would, advise the person and also be there or represent the person. ngokumayelana naye ke ummeli akusukuthi ke uma ekhona ummeli lapho ukuthi kufanele amtshele loyo ahamba naye noma amele ukuthi yini kufanele ayisho ukhona nje ukuthi ameluleke nokuthi ke amxhaseke noma ke amsupport ukuthi abe ngobukhona bakhe lapho.
According to
Ek gaan nie voort met enige bekentenis alvorens ek nie vasgestel het of beide partye teenwoordig ten opsigte van die verklaarder en die prokureur behoorlik met mekaar gekonsulteer het nie.
I do not
En
go-
vind ek dit uiters vreemd
Okay,
dat
that's one block. I do not proceed or I do not go ahead with taking off a statement, whether it's a confession or a statement, without confirming or making sure that both parties had properly consulted. That is now the person, the deponent, as well as the lawyer. Angiqhubekeki noma ngiyiphambili ke ngokuthi ke ngistarte ke statement ngingenaso isiqiniseko sokuthi laba bantu bakhulumisene lokubizwa ngokuthi uconsultor ummeli kake futhi naye ke lona amele.
I understand that,
She's
but
not finished yet. It's not finished yet.
sorry.
She wasn't finished yet. Just ask her to stop because I didn't want it to be
Oh,
long.
okay, sorry. Beg your pardon, sir.
en
I'm
vind
not
ek
God
dit
or asseblief. Kan net God or asseblief.
En vind ek dit vreemd dat die deposant in hierdie bekentenis enigstens andersins sou beweer.
And I find it very strange that the deponent in this case or in this instance would then now mention it or say it differently or otherwise. Futhi ke kuyinto manje ke engimangazayo ke ukuthi lona ke engangikhulumisana naye lana ke manje akhulume okuhlukile noma akhulume enye into.
I'm glad that you mentioned the interpreter. But what I want to establish from you, the person who was going to take a confession, is that did you afford them an opportunity to consult prior to the taking of a
Meneer, u het
confession?
die band geluister. U weet dit is gedoen. U weet beide partye het my meegedeel dat hulle klaar gekonsulteer het.
Okay, wait, that's what. Sir, you listened to the record. You know very well that both parties informed me that they did that. Ulalelile irecord. Uyakwazi futhi ukuthi bobabilike bangitshelile
So-
ukuthi lokho bebesebekwenzile.
So die antwoord op u vraag is net kort en kragtig. Dit is gedoen.
And so the answer to your question is short and sweet. It was done. Impenduleko kumbuzo wakho umfushane nje ukuthi kwenziwa lokho noma makwenza lokho.
Ma'am, I just want us to be in the same page when I'm asking questions. For your information, that tape recording has not been accepted in this court. We can't rely on it. Do you agree? Do you know that?
Ek neem nou kennis van wat u sê. Die staatsadvokaat het ook vir my gesê toe ek geroep is.
I'm taking note of what you say now, and the prosecutor also informed me when I was called. Ngiyakuzwa ke manje njengoba ungitshela ke ukuthi recording leyo ke asiyona ingxenye yobufakazi nomshushisi ungitshelile.
I just want to establish the presence of a legal practitioner.
Dis reeds geantwoord meneer, daar was een teenwoordig. Sy besonderhede is neergeskryf en sy fidelity fund sertifikaatnommer is neergeskryf. So hy behoort opspoorbaar te wees.
I've already answered the question, sir. His particulars or his details are written there, as well as fidelity funds is also a number is also written there. So that means that he's traceable or he can be traced. Maila.
Sorry.
Maila ke mininingwane yommeli ibhaliwe lapha ya. Inamba yakhe ke ye-fidelity fund ibhaliwe okusho ukuthi ke uma efuneka angatholakala.
All that was done in the presence of an interpreter.
Dis korrek.
That is correct. Konke lokho kwenza utolike khona.
Between the deponent and his attorney, who initiated in the taking of a confession? Was it the deponent or his attorney?
Die verklaarder,
The deponent.
Thank you.
Umuntu ke owayeqala phakathi kommeli kanye naye ke loyo owanikeza ke statement umuntu ke owayekhuluma ke noma ke owaqala ke inkulumo kwakuyena ke lo owayinikeza ngestatement.
As I've maintained that that will be the version, but I can't repeat the version of accused number 2. Let's get into the presence of the people that were in room 2 before you took the confession. It's your evidence that you went to the other room where you collected the pro forma. You agree?
Ek het uitgestap om na die senior landroos toe te gaan. Ek het haar in die gang gekry en sy het vir my die papier voorsien en ek is terug in die kantoor in.
I went out on my way to the senior magistrate. I then met her, found her in the passage. She then provided me with the documents. I then went back to the office. Ngaphuma ke ngenjongo yokuthi ngiya kuyena ke ophethe omanje noma imanje ngahlangana naye ke lapho epassage wasenginikeza ke amaphepha ngabuyela kulela office engangikulona.
So we need clarity. I think the court will need clarity in terms of the pro forma, the pro forma that you were given by Mrs. Du Plessis. Is it a statutory form or just a guideline?
Dit is net 'n leiding.
It's,
Dit is nie 'n statutêre vorm nie, voorgeskrewe vorm nie.
it's not a prescribed form, a statutory form. It is just a guideline. Akusona ke iform ongathi iform njena ke lena anginikeza yona noma amaphepha anginikeza wona akuchazelayo ke nje noma ke ayinkomba ukuthi yini ekufanele uyenze.
For the benefit of the public, can you explain what is a statutory form?
Voorgeskrewe vorm.
It's a prescribed form. Uma ukhuluma ke nge-statutory form, iform ke leyo engathi ke iyona ke kufanele isetshenziswe.
Do you agree with me that a statutory form is more reliable than a guideline or a pro forma form that you completed on that day?
Dit mag so wees, maar ek weet nie van 'n bekendene statutêre voorgeskrewe vorm nie.
It might be the case, but I don't know of a statutory form or a confession statutory form. Ungenzeka ke lokho khulumayo ke ukuthi ke yona ke statutory form yona ke mhlambe inikeza okuningi ke kodwa angiyazi ke leyo form leyo noma ekuyiyona ekubizwa ngokuthi statutory form uma noma kwenziwa yona i-confession.
In essence, a statutory form will contain all the prerequisites of a particular provision, particularly section 217. Do you agree with that?
Ek weet nie wat se vorm u na verwys nie.
I don't know which form are you referring to. The form okhuluma ngayo angiyazi.
As dit 'n voorgeskrewe vorm is, dan behoort die persone wat dit opgestel het daaraan te voldoen, aan wetgewing te voldoen.
If it is a prescribed form, then it means that the people that is now, or the legislature, or the people that came up with the document, then need to, in other words, to meet those requirements.
Dit bly nog steeds die plig van die landdros of die persoon wat die bekentenis afneem.
It is still the duty, but it still remains the duty of the magistrate or the person taking down the
Om
confession.
seker te maak dat die vrae wat gevra word sodanig is dat dit baie duidelik is dat hierdie formaliteitsvereistes aan voldoen is.
That the questions that are asked, or the questions that are contained in there, that those questions then meet the requirements or the needed requirements.
Indien die vorm wat voorgehou word. Ekskuus, ek verstaan nie die beweging wat jy maak met jou hand.
I don't understand this movement you're making with your hand.
No.
Dit is, ekskuus agbare, dit is, your lordship, it is baie distracting.
It's distracting, my lord.
I believe if it's distracting, I'm sorry for that. But there's another way that I'm using my hands to rethink or to connect in terms of my reasoning. Do you understand?
Ek verstaan, maar ek sal waardeer as u dit nie doen nie, want dit is nou die eerste keer wat u dit doen vandat u my vrae vra.
I understand, but I would request that you don't do it again because it's the first time you're doing it since you started asking me questions.
All right. Let's just do like
Laat ek
this.
net teruggaan na die antwoord toe. Ten opsigte van die vorm waarop u gevra het, die Romeo vorm, dis nie 'n statutêre vorm nie.
With regards
Hierdie
to-
Rhino vorm voldoen egter wel aan die bepalings wat vereis word in terme van artikel 217 en bevat genoeg inligting myns insiens om die voorvereistes vir 'n bekentenis aan te voldoen.
Kan u dit asseblief sin vir sin vind, want ek het nou sekere lyne gemis. Kan u weer van onder begin linker? U sê die vorm,
Die statutêre vorm waarvan u praat, is ek onbewus van.
the statutory form that you are referring to, I'm not familiar with. Yeah.
Die betrokke vorm wat hier voor hierdie hof is, het voldoende vrae wat gevra word aan 'n deposant.
This form that is before this court, they've got enough questions or the required questions which are the requirements of this form
Om te voldoen aan die voorvereistes soos gestel is.
as per the requirements.
Maar sou ek voorsien gewees het van 'n vorm wat nie daaraan voldoen het nie, dan sou ek dit moes neerskryf, enige verdere vrae, sodat ek daaraan kon voldoen.
And if I was then provided with a form that did not meet those requirements or have enough those questions, I would then have added questions to make sure that it meets the requirements.
Thank you. Can it be interpreted?
Iform ongibuza ngayo okoqala ke noma iphepha lelo ngibuza ngalo ke angilazi. Mina ke ngiphendula ngaleli eliphambi kwami ukuthi yilona ke elinale mibuzo ke eyanele noma efanele ukuthi iyona ebuzwayo. Uma kuwukuthi nganginikezwe enye ke iform kube ukuthi ke ayinayo ke imibuzo eyanele, ngabe ngizokwengeza ke eminye ukwenza ke isiqiniseko sokuthi ngempela ke yonke le ekufanele ukuthi ibuziwe ikhona noma futhi yebo ngempela ibuziwe.
All right. To qualify that question or that answer, can you show me in that form a paragraph where a requirement of freely and voluntarily, a statement must be made freely and voluntarily as prescribed by section 217.
Sorry, Mr. Mngomezulu. Do you have a form which has those requirements to show to the witness? Because this witness is not a layperson. She's an attorney, she's a magistrate, she knows what is section 217. And according to her, 50 confession statements in the past, she has handled them.
My
But
Lord.
now, wait, Mr. Mngomezulu, let's be fair to the witness. You talk about a form which you say it has the requirements which you are saying it codes 217. Show the witness that.
My Lord, if you understood me, I said, what is the difference between a statutory form and that pro forma form?
Yes, he says the
She
prescribed
gave,
form.
she gave a distinction. I said, according to this form, I never said I have a statutory form that prescribes this. I said, according to this pro forma form, does it constitute freely and voluntary as required by section 217? That's all what I want from her to tell me, that is it contained in that pro forma,
Die
freely
woord-
and voluntarily.
Die woord ongedwonge en vrywillig, daai spesifieke bewoording verskyn nie hierin nie. Maar as u die vraag lees en u volg die vraag en u sien hoe dit gevra is en saamgestel is en dat dit wel gevra is aan die deposant, dan is dit die prerogatief of dit is die voorsittende beampte, in hierdie geval myself, wat myself vergewis het daarvan dat hierdie bekentenis wel vrywillig en ongedwonge afgelê is. Die wete-
Sorry, you maak het baie moeilik vir my. Maak het baie moeilik. Those specific words that you are asking me about are not contained in this form. But if you look at the questions, how the questions are being asked, how the questions are being written down, and you would then myself as the magistrate, then have to satisfy myself that indeed this statement or the confession, it is indeed made freely and voluntarily. Imibuzo ke leyo ongibuza ngayo noma amagama lawo amabili ongibuza ngawo lana ke kulena iform awekho ukuthi ke ngokukhululekile okuphuma kuyena, kodwa uma ubheka imibuzo lena ke indlela ekangayo ebhalwe ngayo ebuzwa ngayo, mina ke nanjengemanje kufanele ngize nezeke ukuthi ngempela ke lokhu akukhulumayo noma lokhu akushoyo kuphuma kuyena akaphoqiwe.
Een baie goeie vraag wat hier saamgestel is op bladsy 6.
One very good question that has
Wat
been compiled here on page
Basies in
6.
'n neutedop. U vraag antwoord is uitgesit in die vraag wat lees en ek haal aan.
Yes, for which in a nutshell answers the very same question that you are asking, and I quote,
You have now told me that you were not influenced, encouraged, assaulted or threatened to make the statement, and that no promises were made to you in order to persuade you to do so. I wish to once again ask you to take me into your confidence and tell me if in your opinion anything irregular has been said or done to influence you to make this statement. I undertake to ensure that your allegations are immediately and properly followed up and attended to. En die antwoord no, nothing of that sort. So, daar was 'n lyn van vrae wat tot op hierdie punt gekom het. In lig van die lyn van daai vrae en hierdie vraag het ek myself tevrede gestel as 'n Landros dat hierdie bekentenis wat hy van voorneme was om te maak, wel vrywillig en ongedwonge gemaak sou word.
There was a line of questions that was put, and which then eventually led to the question that is the witness now just read. And as a result of that, I then, as the magistrate, satisfied myself that the statement or the confession that was made, that it was made freely and voluntarily. Kunombuzo ke lana obhaliwe athi ke iwona ke uma uphendula ke noma uphendula ke lokhu okubuzwa uyena ummeli ukuthi manje ke usungitshelile ke ukuthi akekho okugqugquzelile, akekho okushayile, akekho okusabisile ukuthi wenze sona lesi statement, nokuthi azikho izithembiso ezenziwe kuwena ukukushintsha ke umcabango ukuthi uze uzokhuluma la. Ngifisa ke manje futhi ukuthi ke wena ke ngifisa ukucela ukuthi ungethembeke futhi ke usho ukuthi ngovo lwakho ingaba khona yini ongahambanga kahle noma ongahambi kahle okushiwo kuwena noma okwenziwe kuwena ukuthi uzokwenza lesi statement. Ngiyaqinisekisa ke ukuthi insolo zakho zizothi ke zinakwe. Wase ephendula ke ethi cha akukho okukanjalo.
Thank you.
Ek wil dit net regstel. Want ek sien dit het bietjie verlore gegaan in die tolkwerk. Dit is ten opsigte van die verklaring, die bekentenis wat gemaak sou word.
Okay,
Nie wat al reeds gemaak is nie.
I
Wat
just want
gemaak sou word.
I just want to just rectify this, and I see that it got lost in translation. And just before I get on, my lord, I did request the witness. She makes very long statement, so it is possible that it might get lost. So can you hear that?
Yeah.
That in the statement that was about to be made, not already made.
Mrs. Cronje, I believe from what you were reading, it's the wording of a particular paragraph, which as a magistrate, you think it meets the requirement.
Meneer, ek het by vergewis dat hierdie verklaring, die bekentenis wat hy wou maak, vrywillig was gebaseer op die antwoorde wat hy gegee het.
Sir, I certified myself that this statement or this confession that he intended making was freely and voluntarily based on the answers that he provided me with. ngaze nezake mina ukuthi istatement lesike awayefisa ukusenza noma awayezosenza ukuthi wayezosenza ngokuphuma kuyena ngeimpendulo ayenginikeza zona.
According, I will maintain on the wording of the paragraph. It was already a prepared wording which you read to the deponent. It's not something that is coming from the deponent to mean freely. He was answering something that has already been prepared.
Advokaat, met alle respek, dis nie die enigste vraag wat gevra is om tot daai gevolgtrekking te kom nie. Ek het die vraag geantwoord en ek volstaan by my antwoord.
Advocate, with that due respect, that is not the only question that was asked or that was put to him with regards to that. I've already provided my answer and I still maintain it. Akusiwona-ke wodwa lo mbuzo engiqeda ufunda manje owabuzwa nokuyena-ke ngokumayelana nalokho-ke impendulo sengikunikezile futhi ngimileke kuleyo mpendulo engikunike yona.
U vra vir my of ek daar in hierdie pertinente vorm die woorde basies het van het u die of is u van voorneme om hierdie verklaring vrywillig en ongedwonge te maak. Woorde tot daai effek. Hierdie vorm het dit nie. Ek is ook nie bewus van 'n statutêre vorm wat dit het.
Okay. You've specifically asked me with regards to the words freely and voluntarily. And this particular form doesn't contain or have those words. And I know of no statutory form that contains those words or those two words. Ungibuzileke mayelana nalamagama amabili ngokukhulekile nokuthi futhi ke awuphoqiwe. Awekho lawo magama. Lana ayikho neform futhi engiyaziyo enawo.
And I would actually appreciate to answer me as a witness, not as a magistrate. As a witness that has been sworn in. My question is...
Mr. Mngomezulu. She's a magistrate.
Yes. My Lord, that cannot change.
You're saying she must answer you not as a magistrate. She is a magistrate.
She is a magistrate,
Yes.
my Lord. That cannot change.
Yeah, that's
But she must... I'll make an example of Nelson Mandela, my Lord. He was a witness in the matter of Louis Late. He has never been addressed as a president of the country at that time. There must be a distinction between your position and as being sworn in as a witness.
Yeah.
Hence,
Sorry, you may have a point about...
she can easily say, advocate. I mean, she's inviting me to draw such conclusions.
No.
As I'm requesting the court for the protection of this witness, as the duty of the court, she must understand that where she is seated, she is a witness.
Yes.
The evidence that she's going to, I'm talking about parole evidence here. That's the oral evidence that you are giving. What you did outside is an extrinsic evidence. We are trying to follow the extrinsic evidence, whether you complied with it. You are the witness to say that. Hence, if I'm saying get into the answers, the wording, let's look at paragraph 1A, for instance. Can you please read it for me?
I inform the deponent that I am a magistrate.
Thank you. Stop there. Thank you. I just want to go through the wording.
Mazisileke loyo owayephambi kwami ukuthi ngiyimantshi.
What were you expecting from the deponent? If you, that forms, tell the deponent that you are the magistrate. What does it say?
Meneer,
Was it necessary for that form to say, I'm the magistrate?
Natuurlik moet die man weet vir wie hy verskyn. Hy behoort te weet in watter omstandighede hy hom bevind, waarheen hy gevat is, voor wie hy verskyn, met wie hy praat.
Yes, of course he had to know before whom was he appearing, the circumstances under which he was or he found himself in. Bakumele ukuthi azike ukuthi uphambi kobani ukuthi futhi nesimo ke ayengaphansi kwaso.
The introduction in the presence of an attorney, your introduction in the presence of the attorney, was that not sufficient enough for him to believe that you are a magistrate?
Meneer, op daai stadium het ek nog nie vir enige iemand gesê dat ek 'n landros is nie. Niemand sou geweet het dat ek 'n landros is nie. Ek het nie 'n toga aan nie. Ek's in siviele drag en ek's in 'n kantoor.
At that stage, sir, I hadn't informed anyone that I was a magistrate. No one knew. I wasn't wearing my gown or my robe, and I was in my civilian clothing, and I was in an office.
That
Ngaleso
means-
sikhathi leso ke akekho umuntu engangimtshelile ukuthi ngiyimantshi, ngangagqokile ke igown noma irobe yami yokuthi ngiyimantshi, ngigqoke nje ingubo zami ke futhi ngisehhovisi.
Hierdie man het gevra om na 'n hof toe gevat te word. Hy word in 'n kantoor ingevat met 'n persoon met siviele drag.
This gentleman requested to go to court, or this gentleman requested to be taken to court. He is then taken into an office with a person who is in civilian clothing.
Can we-
Umuntu lona wacela ukuthi athathwe asiwe enkantolo.
Can we
Usuya-
not? Sorry, sir.
Usuyangena ke manje ungena kwihhovisi elinomuntu oyigqokele nje ingubo zakhe.
I'm asking you, Mrs. Cronje, do not involve or say something that is not asked. My question is, before you completed, there are particulars of the deponent on top there, which you got from either the lawyer or the deponent or the investigating officer. Do you understand?
Ja, ek verstaan wat jy sê.
Yes, I understand what you say.
My question is it, according to the paragraph 1A, was it necessary to mention that you are a magistrate?
Natuurlijk.
Does that not
Of course.
constitute inducement?
Nee.
No.
I'll leave it for argument. My submission and I'll put it to you that pro forma on its own, it has on a face value of it. We call it a patent defect. It has an element of inducement. If you say I'm a magistrate, that means already you sway the impulse of the deponent. Do you agree?
Nee.
No.
Thank you. I'll leave it for argument. Proceed. I'll stop you wherever I want to stop. Proceed with that paragraph. You said I'm the magistrate, comma.
And I'm not in any way involved in
Thank
the
you.
investigation.
Thank
Futhi
you.
ke angisiyona ke ingxenye yophenyo.
He did not ask. You are telling him. You are making him comfortable, according to, am I right? I'm a magistrate. I'm not involved in the investigation. You are making the deponent comfortable. Is that not so?
Dit sal die effek hê.
That will have that effect. Yes. Yebo ke lokho ukuthi ngimtshela ukuthi angisiyona magistrate, sorry ngiyi-magistrate futhi ke angisiyona ingxenye yophenyo. Into ke leyo engamenza ke ukuthi ke naye ke abe eyakhululekala.
Hy het ook 'n reg om te weet hoekom hy daar is.
He also has a right, sorry.
Waar ek inpas.
Also has or had a right to know as to why he was there and where do I fit in.
You don't
Futhi
answer-
wanelungelo lokwazi ke ukuthi ngiyubani mina ke nokuthi kungani elaphayani nokuthi mina ke ngihlanganiswa yini nalokho.
Don't get emotional, ma'am. Answer my question as I ask you. Because I followed the logic. If you say I made him comfortable, I'm satisfied. There's a next question to follow. Do you understand?
That's a good question, but I don't know what is the basis for saying the witness is getting emotional. I think if my learned friend can just confine himself just to asking questions without taking the witness.
My Lord, when I'm asking the question from the witness and tends to say things which do not relate to my question, as it has been indicated, that is a magistrate. He is actually getting out of the scope of the profession. Hence, I just want to confine the magistrate or the witness, not the magistrate, the witness on the line of questioning because I've got the reason to stick on that paragraph 1A.
Sorry, Mr. Mngomezulu, I don't wish to interfere. Doesn't Section 217 speak of a magistrate who can take a confession?
It speaks about the magistrate.
Yes.
That's
and
correct.
she is approached by her senior, Mrs. Duplessis, as a magistrate to go and take a confession. It's just egregious that she happens to be a witness, but she is also a magistrate. And she, when she was told, asked or requested by Mrs. Duplessis to take a confession, she was being instructed to do or requested to do so as a magistrate, as stipulated in Section 217 of the Constitution.
Thank you.
I mean, of
May
the
I-
Criminal
may-
Procedure Act.
May I clarify that?
Yes, okay.
The reason why I want to clarify is because we are running away from the element of inducement. A provision specifically say it must be made before the magistrate. It does not introduce the magistrate to the taking of the confession. I'm not sure if you understand,
No, I
but
don't.
I said I
I
want to
don't.
leave it for argument.
Yeah.
May I repeat what
don't.
what I was submitting before the
Yes.
Lordship?
Yeah, okay.
My Lordship is that Section 217 says it must be taken, is directing us that such a particular confession must be taken by a magistrate.
Yes.
But now, you are the magistrate, you've got the forms from Mrs. Duplessis, everyone, especially in the presence of an attorney. She should have actually introduced herself to say, I'm the attorney, I'm the magistrate who's coming to take a confession. I was told that I must come and assist in the taking of a confession. Now, my concern is about the patent defect that is on that pro forma. Because
Okay.
when you introduce yourself in a statement where he must freely make a statement, there's no point that she was supposed to say, I'm a magistrate.
What should she have said?
A
According
statement,
to you.
according to me, a statement must have been narrated immediately to say, on this particular day, this is what I've
No,
done.
no, the question, no. What would you have said? Because you say she was not supposed to have said, I am a magistrate. Now I'm just inquiring, what should she have said?
Meaning, my Lord, must I correct the pro forma according to the...
No, I'm just asking you because you're saying...
My Lord, I've never conducted a confession, and I'm not empowered by any law to do it. So I cannot think of a word that I can use when I'm taking a confession. I'm a lay person when it comes to that. A person with 50 years confessions that she has made, they don't see the element of inducement in that paragraph A. Because all that the deponent was going to say is because he believed, and I'm not done with that paragraph. May I still proceed with that paragraph? Can we continue to read that paragraph, ma'am?
That I do not work with the police or any other person in this case, and that he can speak freely and without fear in my presence.
Nokuthi ke angisebenzi namaphoyisa noma ke imuphi omunye umuntu kuleli cala leli nokuthi ke angakhuluma ke ngokukhululekile angesabi ngikhona.
Thank you. The wording, you can speak. Do you agree that is not coming from the deponent?
I've never claimed that it came from him.
Angikaze ngisho ukuthi leli gama ke ukuthi ungakhuluma ukuthi libuya kuyena.
But you directed, in terms of that wording, you directed the deponent to speak because you told him that you are not a police officer, you are not part of the investigation, you are a magistrate. But you further say you can Do you understand what I'm saying?
He had a choice to speak or not to speak. It was his choice.
ukuthi ke akhulume angakhulumi kwakukuyena lokho.
So what is the next? What was the answer given by the deponent there? It's handwritten, if I'm not mistaken. After that paragraph, after paragraph 1A.
There is no answer given by the deponent at that point in time because I continued to explain to him paragraph B and C before I asked him if he understood the explanation.
Ayikho ke impendulo awayinikeza ke ngaleso sikhathi leso ke ngoba ngaqhubeka ke ngayo paragraph C B kanye no paragraph C ngaphambili kokuthi ngimbuze ke ingaba uyezwa ke lokhu engiqeda ukuchaza.
Let's hear what paragraph B says.
You also informed that if necessary, you will be afforded protection against any irregularities.
Thank you, stop there. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Futhi nokuthi atshelwe ke noma ke watshelwa ke ukuthi uma isidingo sikhona ke uzovikelwa noma uzonikezwa ukuvikeleka kuko nakuphi ke okungahambi kahle.
Is that not a promise? Is that not a promise? I'm asking, is that not a promise?
It may be construed as a promise that he needs to, if he feels threatened, that arrangements will be made for his
I'm
protection.
still there, ma'am. Don't go further than that. I ask you to stop.
Do you want me to interpret for your client, sir?
No, I wanted to stop.
But she still, I need to interpret what she says. It's for your client, sir. Please allow me to. Lana ke ungasho ke ungachaza lokho ukuthi yebo isona isithembiso lesi ngokuthi uyatshelwa ke uma kuwukuthi uzizwa ngathi ke ukhona ke noma ke uyesaba ukuthi ke amalungiselelo azokwenziwa ke ukuthi avikeleke.
I ended where you said he will be protected and you considered that it amounts to a promise.
Hy is nie gesê dat hy will be protected nie. He was informed, and I quote, if necessary, he will be afforded protection against any irregularities.
Lana ke kuchazwa ke ukuthi uma noma ke uma isidingo sikhona ke uzothi aqinisekiswe ke ukuthi uyavikeleka.
Did you explain what kind of irregularities you were referring to?
Nee,
No, angishongo ke ukuthi uma ngikhuluma ngokuthi ke uma kuukuthi kukhona ke ongazange kwenziwe kahle noma kuhamba kahle ukuthi ngangishoni ngangikhuluma ngani.
Did you establish whether the deponent understood what you meant by irregularities?
nie op daai stadium nie.
Not at that stage. Ngaleso sikhathi ke shongo ke noma ke ngiqinisekiseke ukuthi uyezwa ke noma uyazisisa yini ukuthi ngisho ukuthini uma ngikhuluma ngokungalongo ngokungenziwanga kahle noma ngokungahambanga kahle.
To put it on record, what irregularities were you referring to?
Enige iets.
Anything.
Enige beïnvloeding, enige dreigemente, enige iets wat gebeur het. Want dit kan enige iets wees wat uit sy oogpunt onreëlmatig is.
And I was referring to anything, any influence, any threats that were made, anything that could, in his eyes or in his view, could have then been an irregularity.
Dis nie aan hom verduidelik wat dit is van my kant af nie, want ek wou nie beïnvloed het daaroor nie. So as hy ongelukkig was oor enige iets, dan sou hy dit vir my gesê het.
It was not explained to him at that stage as to what irregularity is. If there was anything, then he would have informed me or told me about it.
Hy moes wel geweet het dat hy my in sy vertroue kon neem om enige probleme wat hy gehad het, enigiets wat hy beskou het as 'n onreëlmatigheid te kon noem.
He had to know that, or he knew that, or what he had to know was that he had to take me into his confidence that anything that happened or any irregularity that happened, that he had to inform me about that. Kwakuwukuthi kwakufanele azike ukuthi nokuma yini ke eyayenzekile futhi engazange yenzeke ngendlela noma ngendlela kwakufanele ukuthi yenzeke ngayo angitshele.
Sonder dat daar enige idees in sy kop geplant word.
Without putting any ideas into his head, ngaphandle kokuthi nje ubusufaka ke noma yini ke ekhanda lakhe noma ke umfakele nje ama ideas ekhanda lakhe.
But with regard to irregularity, you are the only one who knew about or the context or the content of irregularity. That has never been explained to the deponent. That's my point. You're the only one who knew about irregularities.
Ek was nie bewus van enige onreëlmatigheid op daardie stadium nie, meneer.
I wasn't aware of any irregularity at that stage, sir. Ngangingazi ngalutho ke ekwangabe yenzeka ke engazange yenzeke ngendlela ngaleso sikhathi leso.
Can you get back, let's get to paragraph C.
This is not a trial and I'm not hearing any charge against you.
Akusukona ke lokhu ukuqhula kwecala futhi ke angilalelanga angizange lana ke ukuzolalela icala noma amacala owethweswayo.
All right. That's very important. At the time, Ntanzi was interviewed by you, specifically on that paragraph 3, on paragraph C. Did he appear you as an accused person? Did he appear you as a suspect or any person who wanted to make a confession before you?
Ek verstaan nie u vraag nie.
I don't understand your
May I
question.
rephrase it? At that time, Ntanzi appeared before you on the 24th. Have you ascertained whether he has been charged or he was not charged or he was just an ordinary civilian who wanted to make a confession? Have you established that?
Ek het nie daai vraag in daardie opsig gevra nie, so ek was nie seker of hy al reeds aangekla was op die enigiets nie. Ek het hom hanteer asof dit 'n persoon is wat na my toe gekom het omdat hy bekentenis wou maak op wat hy ook al wou sê. Op daai stadium het ek nie eens geweet wat dit was nie. Maar
I
ek het
did
nie
not ask the question
vasgestel.
in that form or in that manner. So I wasn't aware or I didn't know as to whether he had been charged. I just took him as someone who came before me to make a confession.
Yes.
Ngaleso sikhathi ke ngangamazi ke noma wayesethweswe amacwala noma cha ngangimthatha ke ukuthi nje umuntu oze kumina ke ofuna ke uzokhuluma.
But prior to the completion of the pro forma, did you converse or speak to the investigating officer of the case?
Ja, in sy teenwoordigheid toe die wel ek weet nie vir die ondersoekbeampte dis nie, ek het maar aangeneem. Toe sergeant Mngomezulu vir my homself bekend gestel het en vir doeleindes van die voltooiing van die vorm ek hom gevra het vir die polisiestasie en die kasnommer, sou dit nie beskikbaar gewees het nie, sou ek net daar geskryf het, not available or unknown.
Yes, in his presence, that was at the time that when I spoke to Sergeant Vusumuzi Mukhane, that's when I made inquiries with regards to the police station as well as the case number. If it wasn't there, I would then just have written not available. Ngakhuluma ke naye ke she also said that I wasn't aware or I didn't know whether he was the investigating officer or what. Ngakhuluma ke naye uMukhane lona ke inkathi ke ngangibuza imininingwane yalo icala ukuthi police station yipi, i-case number yipi. Uma kuukuthi ayingekho ke ngangizobhala ke lapho ukuthi cha ayikho leyo mininingwane.
Met sekere konfessies of bekentenisse kan dit nie verskaf word nie want daar's nie 'n dossier geopen of geregistreer nie en dan skryf ek niks in daar nie.
With certain or certain or some confessions, it is that information is not there simply because maybe there is no docket that has no docket exists at that stage. So I would then not write that because it is not contained.
Met ander konfessies wat ek al hanteer het, is die persoon of is daar 'n dossier geopen, maar niemand is nog formeel aangekla nie. So met ander woorde, daar's 'n kasnommer, maar niemand is nog formeel op die saak aangekla nie. So ek kan al reeds die inligting hê met die konfessie, maar die persoon kan of aangekla wees of nie aangekla wees nie.
With certain confessions, it is so that there is already a docket, but no one has yet been formally charged. So there would be some information. So it's either a person has been charged or a person has not yet been formally charged. Kwamanye ke amacala noma kwezinye izitatimende kuzothola ke ukuthi idocket yebo likhona ke kodwa akekho umuntu oseboshiwe.
In hierdie geval weet ek nie of hy wel al aangekla was of nie ten opsigte van die beskikbaarheid van die inligting van die dossier.
But in this particular case, I didn't know as to whether he had been charged or not with regards to the available information regarding this docket. Kodwa ke kuleli icala ke ngangazi ke ukuthi wayesethwesiwe yini noma wayesethweswe yini amacala.
Before we move on to paragraph 4, I think other paragraphs were reduced. And the other paragraph relates to a minor. But for the benefit of the public, does the taking of a confession prescribes a jurisdiction, a place where it's supposed to be taken?
Nee.
No. Ukuthathwa ke kwayo i-confession akusho ke noma ke achazi ukuthi kunendawo ethize ekufanele noma uma ngaphansi kwendawo ethize la ekufanele ukuthi ithathelwe khona.
Are you aware that the deponent was arrested at Rustenburg?
Nee.
No. Angazi ke noma angikwazi ke ukuthi wayeboshelwe eRustenburg.
Are you aware that the deponent was arrested on the 16th of June 2020?
Hy het my so meegedeel dat hy gearresteer was op die 16de Junie.
He informed me as such that he was arrested on the 16th of June. Wangitshela yena ke ukuthi waboshwa nge-16 zika June.
Let's move to paragraph 4. My Lord, I request an adjournment.
What time is it?
5 to 1.
5 to 1.
Yes.
We can resume at 2.
2 o'clock, okay? 2 o'clock, we return.